Batby came here from a dying world. We drift through the universe from planet to planet, discussing media without concern for spoilers. We discuss and we surmise. The function of life is to spoil. This Spooktober, Beardy and the Beast is getting body snatched. If you enjoy what we do, please leave us a like or join the discussion in the comments or at our Discord. My name is Drew, and he's guaranteed to jack you up. Devin?
Oh, yep. All that illegal caffeine.
Today we'll be discussing 1998's teen horror, The Faculty. So, Devin, were the kids all right, or was it just another brick in the wall?
I liked that opening. I like that it actually took me a second to realize that it was another brick in the wall because they just never had the lyrics there. I'm just like, that's a good groove. I'm like this. Like, wait a second.
I recognized immediately, and I was like, "Of course it is."
Well, it's because they switched to another song partway through. I'm like, okay, no, I must have been wrong. And then went back into the groove again.
Yeah, I it was up for a gooder when it like immediately opened with the kids aren't all right, and then like faded to your crossing the schoolyard kind of trope
Yeah.
with another brick in the wall another brick in the wall part two, and of course you're like, of course it is. It's an edgy teen movie. Of course they have that song. Uh,
Y-
and I was like, you know what? I'm here for it. I'm
Yep.
here for it.
And the music aside, well, I mean, I think both pieces of the music actually do work well with the story. It's like you can tell they weren't chosen at random.
Mhm.
And honestly, that was like one of the best introduction to characters that I have seen in ages. It was 3 minutes and they just showed everything you needed to know. You knew exactly what the characters were, followed the tropes well, and loved it.
Well, yeah, it was quick. Like it got to where we needed to be to actually start progressing without a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
Like we still kind of had our was it a 15 minutes with jerks, but um it felt more concise.
Mhm.
We started getting action beats earlier, which I really appreciated because um knowing teen horror styled movies, they can be like too tropey sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things too. Is like this the movie is like some of these tropes, and I think it's why it worked well. Is this was still in a lot of the codifying of those tropes that we have now,
Mm,
right? Because this is still right in the same time as Scream and I know you like the revival
mhm.
of these horror films. Um, so tweaking the tropes into what we know them as now.
Well, one of the things that I really appreciated about it, appreciated about this, is they still kind of tried to, like, they didn't hold them dear. They definitely tried to subvert them to some degree.
Mhm.
I mean, the fact that none of the kids died is really impressive to me. Like, technically speaking, aren't we supposed to have like a leading female or leading as the only survivor kind of situation?
Yeah, in general, like, as I'm thinking about it, it's like, I honestly think there's only, like, a body count of 3, and one of those was, the queen.
Um, well, frickin' what's his name is comes back, the guy who gets stabbed in the eye with a pen.
Jon Stewart.
He's alive at the end.
Yeah, he's not the one I was counting.
Who else was there? There was,
There was, the
just
not
the
Femke Jensen teacher who got shot in the head. She didn't come back. I don't or le rather, I don't remember seeing her come back.
mhm.
Um, the the
Yeah,
queen,
the queen and the older lady.
and yeah, the one whose body was too weak to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Though, I mean, there definitely could have been a higher body count.
Well, it's like so weird too. Wasn't this a rated R movie?
Probably the ratings are dumb then. What was it rated? Oh. No, 14A.
Okay.
Now they were still very much allergic to like rated R films this time because they were marketed towards us.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely marketed towards me and like our peers, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's I didn't necessarily like the characters. The the writing for them obviously was not of the highest caliber, but that's not kind of the type of media we are watching, right?
Mhm.
Um, I thought it was so interesting as I started watching this because like I didn't look beforehand, but I forgot how like star-studded this cast was.
Holy crap!
Just
It's like, I mean, Usher.
I mean, yeah, Usher, Josh Barnett, freaking Salma Hayek, Jon Stewart, Elijah Wood.
Uh,
There's
I mean, Clea DuVall was still pretty big at that time. For like the entire movie, I was trying to figure out who Delilah and Mary Beth were. Like, why do these people look so familiar to me? It's like, right. Uh, Dead Like Me was an amazing series. And, Fast and Furious. Like, oh, that's it. I don't know. I didn't mind I mean, I wouldn't say any of the characters were likable, but I didn't mind what they were doing with it. Like, I wasn't looking for any deep characterization. I think the acting was fine for what it was, and I think
I mean,
it adds to the body snatcher idea some as well. Like,
and it does help to frame it like if you're not particularly like specifically keen on one individual. Uh, when we get to the accusation phase, which might have been a little too short in this film for my taste. The what about you? You're acting weird. You're acting weird. Like you can hop on all those trains without hyper fixating on one person and be like, no, they're uh the one who's not infected.
yeah. So um so that scene and the ending kind of tie together for me is like the one part that felt off
Mm,
in the film. Oh, sorry, I guess it was didn't feel off with the accusation scene. What it was there was just not the character I expected to
mm,
like. I didn't see. I guess both of these kind of tie to the same thing. I honestly figured it was going to be Hartnett's character. That was our. Well, sorry, I didn't think Hartnett was going to be like the one that was in that spot. Um,
mm.
uh, I half thought that, yeah, maybe there wasn't one there. Uh, but Mary Beth being the queen also threw me off.
I had a because I remember like parts of this movie, uh, more parts of this than a lot of the movies I've watched
Hmm,
recently. Um, but like a few times when Mary Beth was speaking, I'm like, oh yeah, I would fall for it.
hmm,
I would be enthralled,
hmm. It-
both as a teen and as a subject.
well, it's like so from my side, like I'm not sure if I've seen this. About the only thing that I remember is like the bit of the conversation, the bleachers at the end, and the pool. But I remember like the bleachers on the pool, which I'm pretty sure I'm confusing with the craft. Like 'cause they go to there's the bleachers and then they go into the a separate room where there's a pool. I thought that was one room.
Mm,
Literally the only thing that I remembered from the film.
mhm.
So again, I'm not sure I've actually seen it. I think I've seen a scene. Uh,
I mean, you might have
so
caught the end of it on like any number of the
yeah.
um, television channels that just replayed the exact same movies every weekend for months.
Oh yeah. Very possible. Uh, so like as I'm watching it, the issues that I had was I didn't feel there was any foreshadowing around it. And I think part of it goes with they went with an ensemble cast, which both helps and hinders, as you were saying, the body snatcher aspect,
Mhm.
because we've got a diverse cast, but we're not seeing enough of them to go, how weird is this? I have no context that Delilah never wears glasses and goes without hairspray
Yeah, and
until they give that accusation. Some of the others I could see. So, like Stan makes sense to me. Yeah, the jock going to the trying to be academic, I could see where that's coming from. Or
mhm. Yeah, for yeah, Delilah actually, Delilah was I think the reason why Delilah was the twist because the one her personality, she was not acting any different than she normally would,
Mhm.
whereas everyone else seemed to be advancing, so everyone else, while accusing, except for her and Mary Beth, I guess, were far different than expected. We had our like a hyper intelligent stoner guy, a jock who's quitting the team, trying to be intelligent. We have our nerd who's going frickin' Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah,
So in this group, we have a bunch of people who are acting very different than normal, and they were the ones that were normal.
yeah.
It's a weird twist there, uh, and it might have been done like this intentionally. It leads you away from expecting Delilah from being the one.
And I think that's why it bothers me. Because if I'm correct, this is the same person who wrote Scream, Kevin Williamson. So yeah, same guy wrote Scream. So when I'm looking at this as a film outside of just being the body snatcher thing, I'm
Mhm,
I'm looking for some sort of clues. They're giving us indications of things, right? Like having the glass of water, like the constant drinking water is being an immediate sign. And I understand you're not necessarily going to go that obvious, but there just didn't seem to be any indications of that for for Delilah. I had no like the only thing is like, okay, she changed her glasses, whatever.
mhm,
And like I can understand the coming in disheveled with what happened the night before. I guess the only part that sorry, there's a one part that could indicate that because she was one of the first students called in to the office. I guess is
mm.
really the only indication for that. Like as I'm thinking about it now. Um, the other part I didn't like. I did not like Mary Beth being the queen for a couple of reasons. One, it's just so obvious that the new girl is going to be it.
Because
So
the new girl's usually the pro tag, though,
yeah, but I mean
but
it's an
instead they
ensemble cast, so we don't have that, right?
yeah. Well, what I mean is, like, I mean, we take our, uh, Caddy, and she's our primary protagonist,
Mhm.
and the people who are there are effectively the antagonists. This is the reverse of it, right?
Yeah.
And this beginning to it merely makes me wonder if they were, like, trying to subvert the because it's the same writer. I'm wondering if he was trying to subvert the tropes that he established or helped establish.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. It's even if that might be the case, I just think it felt weak. I think it weakened the story. I think there were a lot of other candidates that could have been used for it, and I really think there should have been something with, you know, someone who looked like they were taken over, but
Mm,
wasn't. And I thought they were gonna do it with, the one teacher. I honestly thought they were gonna have her not actually be no, but I guess she had to because they stabbed her, now that I think
mhm.
about it. But I had forgotten that at that point. Um, like, I honestly thought, like, Femke Jensen's character should have been the queen. That's the one that would have been the right I think it would have been subversive enough because, uh, there was, like, the little bits of hints of fire, so her actually snapping at Zeke could have made sense without being like a major personality change other than the fact that, she actually stood up for herself because she was trying before, right?
I mean,
Um
I like it. It's just like it feels a little Jessica's body, but
Jennifer's body.
there you go. Their bodies. Just the wrong person. Um, I'm less bothered by Mary Beth being the queen than I was by Delilah being the infected during the accusatory scene.
Agreed, I was less bothered by it, but my state of bother just comes from the same aspect.
Mhm,
There, there's no. The only indication that it's Mary Beth is the fact that she's the new girl,
mhm,
and that's what bothers me. I didn't feel like there was a lead up in any way, shape, or form. The other person that it could have been again, it was Zeke,
mm,
and I actually thought that that's what they were leading to, and it was very specific. Like I was about to rewind the movie to where they were doing where they were taking the caffeine
mhm.
uh, to see if I missed something, and then they kind of did that. The film lied to us.
Yeah,
It uh, it straight up lied to us. It showed us a scene one way and then completely changed how the scene looked in that flashback,
yeah.
and that bothers me. Whereas they had literally done the camera trick with Zeke. The way he was holding the pen, you couldn't see if he took the drug or not. Like
That's
that
true.
was like that's what they should. That's where I thought they were going with it. So that's why Mary Beth bothers me.
Makes sense. To kinda gather up, your thoughts, I guess I could say, is there are other candidates that, may have been stronger to be our alien leader or snatcher leader than Mary Beth based on how how they were acting and what actions they actually physically took.
Yeah, and the way the shots were composed around them as well.
Mhm.
Like Hartnett, the way he held the pen is an acceptable lie to me.
Mm,
That's don't believe your lying eyes. With Mary Beth, it was no. We've literally changed the scene, and she shape shifted to get out of the drugs. Like no, no, no indication for it. Go away, anger,
I mean,
rage.
they could have had that blatantly on film,
Mhm.
um, not by using any camera tricks aside from, like, who you're focusing on.
Yeah.
So, for instance, what I would have probably chosen to do, given your specifications, is at least in the West, our vision starts on the hand side of the screen and kind of migrates to the right.
Yeah.
So, what I would do is I would change the camera angle so that, in your eyes it gets reset.
Mhm.
On the left-hand side, that's where I would have Delilah or my other person who was um our our deception.
Yeah.
Like this is our infected person, but not the queen or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I would have that event occur on the left-hand side, and while it's occurring,
Mhm.
blatantly on screen, you would show Mary Beth flicking out the bottom of her thing and like faking a sniff.
Yep. And
Like it
I find
happens
that.
so fast that
Yep.
it would take the second or third watch for you to realize that's what happened.
Yeah. Again, don't trust that. Don't trust your lying eyes. And it is insanely easy to train you to look at certain parts of the screen. All you need to
Mhm.
do is just keep having the action there for a couple of minutes, and that is where you're going to look.
Yep.
And by the time the actions move somewhere else, it's too late.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, save the blatant like lying scenes for like heist movies for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Kind of speaking of characters, kind of brings me to one of my favorite facts about this movie is the fact that this was let's see, the one that the chemistry department messed up back in '98. Our reference from the cabin in the woods.
right.
So the
Did we do that on stream, or did we just do it afterwards and like start going through movies to figure out what? when it was.
It was after we did Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
Um, so the primary theory is that, uh, as you know, in the Cabin in the Woods, they're kind of at the last event that they can do before Armageddon, because they need these horror movie situations to play out in a certain way, because it's like a traditional dance or a ceremony
Yeah.
to appease the slumbering gods. Um, and the last set they did uh, failed, and one of those being 1998. Apparently, this movie where the chemistry department messed up. Now, um, the reason why the chemistry department is important is not only because chemistry is part of the faculty, but in the Cabin in the Woods, the chemistry department was in charge of reinforcing people into their own tropes.
Mhm.
So Zeke, if this was Cabin in the Woods universe, Zeke would have started out smart and then been made into a burnout.
Yeah.
Um, it's that's why I think like the tongue-in-cheek reference to the faculty from Cabin in the Woods like is the strongest of the potential theories.
Yes. I agree. I can't think of
Like,
anything else that does that.
well, and like we didn't have any of the like we didn't have the slut character, and technically we didn't even really have the virginal character.
Hmm.
Like none of those prime archetypes were blatantly shown in the way that they're shown in other horror movies of this nature
Yeah.
in the faculty. Um, and then even coming down to the end where everybody survives.
I think one of the things that I found interesting with this, and they unfortunately didn't play with it in the way I thought they were going to.
Hmm.
So I did think there was going to be a couple faculty members that weren't affected or couldn't be infected. I thought Selma Hayek's character wouldn't have been
I
able to
thought
be infected,
I thought I
and
remembered that because
yeah,
like because she was sick or because she was on antihistamines or something.
yeah, and I thought I don't know, the guy I thought was the principal, but I don't think actually was. Um, the guy who was clearly day drinking.
Oh, he was like the history teacher.
Yeah, history. That's right. He, both of them, I thought were not going to be infected. And again, I thought there was a chance that I went kind of both ways with Femke Jensen. I could have thought she either wasn't infected or she was the queen.
Hmm.
Um, because I was going to say, it's like, huh, unlike every other horror movie, it looks like sex and drugs is what lets you survive this. But I mean, they kind of messed that up with the stoner buying all of the one guy's buying all of the drugs, and they were clearly infected.
The guy from that 70s show.
Yeah, yeah. Again, really, just everyone in this film. I thought they were going to play with that a bit more. And a little sad that they didn't.
Well, I think the person being ill is from a different movie. They couldn't be taken over because they were ill.
Yeah, it's definitely something I've seen.
It might have even been like a Buffy or an Angel.
Species.
Oh yeah, it was Species.
Yeah, it was Species.
Yeah, they were turning down the people who were sick because
Yeah,
um they weren't prime candidates for breeding with.
yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. Which I mean,
Anyway,
great movie.
oh yeah, especially the second one.
Wait, did we like the second one?
Yes, we liked the second one better than the first one because it got rid of all the stuff that we didn't like about the first one.
Ah, yes. It's been a long time.
I'm pretty sure we had this discussion while we were watching Slither.
Been a long time. Been a while.
Been a while.
Been a while.
Wow.
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 overall, I s this is in no way a perfect movie. I still really enjoy The Faculty, though. There's there's so much about it that doesn't quite hit the mark, but, like, it sure tries.
Yeah, and for the most part, like, I this isn't Scream,
No.
but I mean, again, that's honestly, let's be fair, that is setting a pretty high bar for these types
Ye
of films. But this was definitely up there, like the foreshadowing thing aside, like that's really my only complaint with the film.
mm.
I didn't mind what they were doing with the characters. The actors actually did have chemistry. Um, the
They actually
characters,
had times where they were like, "Who is infected?
yeah,
Um, who is not?" Unlike Slither.
yeah. I mean, I wasn't feeling horror, but I was definitely feeling tension throughout the film. Like
Mm,
I believed the danger that was there. Um, and like when we talk about like the weak characters, that really comes from the fact that they made it an ensemble film.
mhm.
But that again strengthens it because now we've got enough characters to be constantly questioning. When you only have two or three, it
Well,
becomes too obvious.
the big thing that we end up coming down to is instead of the strength of the individual characters, it's about the characterizations and their relationships with other people.
Mhm.
It's kinda like how, like, in hindsight, the first season of Arcane, uh, coming soon to Beauty and the Beast, um,
Very soon.
very soon. Um, like, aside from Jinx, the characters themselves weren't all that strong,
Mhm.
but the way that the relationships were portrayed was magnificent.
Yeah. Well, and it's something that we kept coming back to when we were doing, Firefly as well,
Mhm.
right? Like, it's the only reason Wash is important.
'Cause 'cause he's Zoe's beard.
I get so triggered. I don't know, I saw a clickbait article, they're like, "Oh, yeah, we're gonna rank the best Firefly characters," and the only one in my mind that got right was Kaylee. Everyone else was backwards, like, "Simon is the worst." I'm like, "Wrong."
In fact, Simon's motivations are clear and concise. It's he's probably tied with Mel.
Yep. They're like, "Wash is," yeah, it's like Simon and then Jane. It's like, "Nope, you're wrong.
You're very wrong.
You're very wrong."
The only reason
Uh,
why I could rate Jane low is because they kinda just figured him out early enough.
they figured him out early enough, and again, I think the movie messed him up a
Ruined his
lot.
character,
It
yeah.
really did. Uh,
Look at all his character development from the entire series. We're just gonna reset that and put him back to day one, Jane.
yep. Go watch your
I was
Firefly series.
I and our Arcane series coming up. It's so funny. There is one place where the faculty could have been much, much, much stronger.
Hmm,
That's the soundtrack. I was kind of gonna mention this at the beginning of it, but like we have our default, you know, teen edgy teen movie song, Another Brick in the Wall. But I feel like for this movie to feel whole, it would have had to been our like late 90s, early 02s were just trying to sell a soundtrack style movie. And it was how the music was portrayed, like Guys and Dolls, School's Out, uh, Haunting Me, I'm 18, Medication, like
medication. This is a
yeah,
weird
we got every
soundtrack.
yeah, we got David Bowie, we got Garbage, we got Creed, we got Offspring, right?
This is a weird soundtrack. Like, I mean, so I think part of this was they wanted to try to. I think they wanted this to be Scream.
Mhm.
And, like, I mean, even though it's the same writer, and I mean, I like Rodriguez, he's a great director.
Yeah,
Um,
like, I mean, like, even Sin City,
yeah.
which I think we have we released Sin City? Oof. Oof.
Uh,
Oof.
soon TM. Um,
I just looked at the time, the date of the recorded of Sin City.
I'm doing that now. Can't be as bad as Ghost of Mars.
Uh,
It's about as bad as Ghost of Mars.
um,
Is it older than Ghost of Mars? It
we
is
watched
older than Ghost of Mars.
yeah, because
Oof.
oh, by the way, spoiler alert, we have cast for Sin City and Ghosts of Mars.
Oof.
Oof. Oof slowed down 100 times. Reverb,
It's like
bass boosted.
you just hear an oof, but it's like in Inception where it's gotten slowed down so many times. You just hear oof.
Like, well, we both recognize how awesome Queen of the Damned is.
Mhm.
And everyone else probably just would think that it's not pure cinematic art like they should. They probably think that half of the movie is actually being held up by a unique and compelling soundtrack. And I think doing something like the mistaken people think about Queen of the Damned
Mhm.
uh, think um, something similar with the faculty would have been very strong.
Mm. Yeah, I think they needed to go one of two ways. And I mean, I know I used to laugh at you saying it's like one of the greatest sequels ever. Like, no, Queen of the Damned is actually pretty good as long as you don't consider it a sequel. Uh, when you separate it from Interview with the Vampire, it is actually a fairly strong film and just great soundtrack. Um, but going back to the trying to be Scream, I think this is the soundtrack. Just looking at it here is kind of an indication of that. Scream had a lot of popular songs, but they were tweaked. Like you didn't realize it. Like
Mhm.
again, Don't Fear the Reaper is the perfect example, perfect foreshadowing because they're playing the slowdown version that you're not probably familiar with.
Yeah.
You are not realizing what it is telling you. Perfect. Um, and this here is like starting out with the kids aren't all right. It works. And then like again, where they were doing another brick in the wall without actually going into it, just like letting the groove carry it was fine. And then it's like again, just kind of this generic mismatch, like Alice Cooper and Garbage
Well,
and
no, but
Bowie. It's kind of like, who are you going for?
and the problem is like when you go from top 40 but tweak it to like this disparate amalgamation, they
Mhm.
would have been better to go like Idle Hands,
Yeah.
where we're talking, I mean, The Offspring again, but Static X, Rip Wayne Static, Rob Zombie, um, Blink 182, like very of that time, kind of like pseudo edgy music, most of them plants. Um, but I feel like that would have made the film a bit stronger. But considering the film was made for like 15 million or something like that,
Mm,
it's
yeah.
such a strong showing for such a minimal budget.
I remember when You had strong showings off of minimal budgets.
Well, there was only one effect in this film that was, like, not good,
Hmm.
and that's at the end where the queen was kinda, like, disintegrating into dust. It actually looked like they just kinda, like, painted over the frames.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like, there was still some of that, like, CGI that is, yeah, questionable. But again, questionable by our standards. Then again, the CGI nowadays is pretty questionable because
It's gotten
it's
worse.
lazy. They didn't linger on the monster. You didn't need to have her there long, which is what you need to do when you're doing a large CGI monster. And again, it's a trick that worked so well for Jurassic Park. It's why the CGI in Jurassic Park stands up so well. Is it was raining for a reason. CGI looks shiny,
The,
so having them in the water does that.
one
Uh,
of the things I really appreciated about our monster is to communicate she changed back to being
mm,
into a person. Not
yeah,
only does it indicate that the monster doesn't in its true form doesn't have the same type of, like, vocalization we have, but it also makes it far creepier
mm,
because you've gone from this country bumpkin sounding girl,
yeah,
which, by the way, she's from BC. Decent accent, I think.
mm,
Um, this kind of country bumpkin sounding girl, very dainty, no threat, to just like this demon beast. And then when she transforms back, the communication isn't that much different, but you can hear like a seething malice to it.
mhm,
And part of that's the acting, but part of that is because you know what she truly is at that point.
yeah.
Like the scene of her again, fairly petite, but seeming very much a threat as she's walking between those lockers, and you see the shadow of the
Oh,
monster.
it was
It was a
so
great,
good.
great scene. Great scene.
I was gonna point that out if you didn't. Um,
Oh, before I lose track, if you want to hear a good song that's like a song that's like a bit off or a really good cover, Jen Titus's "Oh Death" song is very haunting.
alright.
I think even better than the original.
Mm, oh,
I'll put it in the Discord, which everybody should join if they want to join the discussion.
they really should. Uh, so, I mean, so they had the telepathy in this, or so we're told they had that. Um,
Really?
yeah, they did actually mention there's telepathic control, and that's why, again, killing the queen killed everything else. Um,
Oh, I thought they just assumed it. Unless there was a throwaway line I missed. Wasn't there just like in X movie, like killing the queen, they just made an assumption and it worked out?
you know what? That might have been what it was.
Sorry if I just
Oh, no,
ruined something that you were
no,
about to say was
well, no,
strong.
because I mean, there's still like the synchronization and such, so I think it's implied
Mm.
through that. Um,
No, it makes a lot of sense because the creature seems to duplicate an identical twin.
mm,
So chances are the duplication is probably coming with the memories of the host.
mm,
So, like, even if it isn't telepathy, we're probably talking about inherited memory.
that would make sense. Oh, nope, I had the point and I lost it again. Wow.
Still handled far, far better than Slither.
Oh god, yeah.
And
Oh,
you didn't
go ahead.
like. So in Slither, it felt creepy because this supposedly adult girl was in a bath and they did like a topless scene with her, but they were trying to portray her as if she was younger.
Yep.
But they did a semi-nude scene of this, but like she didn't have features in
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Um, but it didn't feel like you were like a creepy, leering, like
No, because it was
Versus
terrifying at that point. It all of a sudden like, "Oh, no, she's just gonna do this, like, buck ass naked, and she is just gonna rip you apart." This is
mm,
what it felt like. Um, so because we had the very clear,
mhm,
so comparing to Slither, we had that very clear, it's an invasion and, I am Legion, destroyer of worlds, type thing with the monster there. And this one here, he has like, okay, basically they got their world dried up or whatever, and I don't know the line about the outcasts and her trying to have some togetherness with the outcasts. Did you sense a bit of sincerity in that?
no. Honestly, it doesn't make a lot of sense why she would, unless she was personally trying to go for the outcasts because she knew they would be the most difficult to convert.
Well, so that's the thing. Are they difficult to convert? Like the outcasts, I don't necessarily think they'd be difficult to convert. It doesn't. The slug isn't. The slug is taking over. It's not like there's any indication there's willpower against it.
Mhm.
I think part of the reason why you go for the popular ones is it's easy to spread. If
Yeah.
you right, there's a reason why all the popular kids were sick at the same time because they were kissing. um, you know the reason I ask is because she definitely had the opportunity to grab any one of them at any
Mhm.
time and never did. Delilah aside, but I don't think she didn't grab Delilah.
Mhm.
Just she happened to be on the top of the list of the faculty. Yeah, it was just a thought that kind of crossed my mind and thought to explore. Like maybe there was a little bit of sincerity there, just because I go, why didn't she? She was obviously so embedded in, which is very different than like just having Delilah. Again, one of those reasons why I think I would have seen Mary Beth as the obvious red herring.
I'm gonna choose not to question it
Fair.
because it is the single string that holds this film together, and if we pull on it, it just destroys the film.
Yeah.
Because fundamentally speaking, there's no reason why she should have been with the like, there's no reason why she would go for why do I wanna say Slater? I forgot her name.
Stokely?
Scooter? Stokely. Yeah, there's no reason why she would approach Stokely in such a way.
Mhm.
Or Zeke kinda makes sense because Zeke was being forward to her,
Yeah.
and she might have been like, "Oh, this is a subject of convenience." They could have tied that whole thing together with being like what they did in Slither. We'll take one thing from Slither. Um, like, it's the first time that creature had, sexual relations in that type of way. So,
Mhm.
like, experiencing the body of this girl that you're, uh, pretending to be,
Yeah.
like, that would have made sense, and it would have kinda brought stuff together.
Yeah.
It's the only reason why Mary Beth would be in the group, but, like, why Stokely?
Yeah. Well, it's because I think they were also trying to be the Breakfast Club. Like I wrote down, it's like, huh, it's like the Breakfast Club and Mean Girls all kind of rolled in there. Though I guess this would have been pre Mean Girls by several years. Yeah,
Best
once again,
Girls. What a great
so
movie.
good, so good. Literally nothing wrong with that film. No,
I was at a party and, like, where movies kinda came up and started talking about, like, what's a fantastic movie that you've seen lately? And I couldn't really think of any, and then people were all saying, like, more artful pieces, and then, there was agreements and disagreements for everyone, but I was like, "You know what? I saw Mean Girls for the first time recently," and everyone was like, "That's a good movie."
it really is a good movie.
It's all it. It actually gets awkward for me when people talk movies because fundamentally, like, I do this as the discussion is my hobby,
Yeah.
not the movie. So, like, I'm not a big film head,
Yeah.
but this has come up so many times before. I'm watching, like, Spanish Girls Camping on YouTube, listening to podcasts, maybe some Sleep Token, uh, K-pop making the band, reality shows. Like, that's what I watch in my non-podcast off time, unless I wanna subject myself to the New Mutants and the latest Thor movie in the same night.
The latest Thor movie was bad.
It was fine.
It was not fine.
It was fine.
How's that Stockholm syndrome going for
There's lots
you?
of good fighting. It was still a Thor movie, unlike the second Doctor Strange movie.
Fair enough.
Because the second Doctor Strange movie was an America Chavez movie, which would have been fine if they called it America Chavez, but because it was a Doctor Strange movie, you'd expect to have it be about Doctor Strange.
It was bad.
It was fine.
Still haven't watched the New Mutants. I'm sure it'll be fine.
No, I actually liked it, but I liked it in that, do you did you ever see the early 90s made for TV Generation X movie?
Yeah.
That movie was fun,
Yeah.
but it wasn't good.
Yeah. I don't have the same concerns with New Mutants because at that point it still wasn't Disney. It was still Fox. So
I mean,
the X-Men movies have always been up and down.
yeah, I was about to say Fox is no saint.
No. No,
Well, I
there's
mean,
definitely not a consistency.
truth be told, they caught lightning in a bottle with Iron Man.
Hmm.
It was an extremely unexpected hit, and that's what started all of this.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the most popular comic.
No.
People weren't super stoked for an Iron Man movie, but you get RDJ, you get some, good quips, maybe a little goop, and you get some nerd powerhouses. Just remember, the insertion is for your chakra. Um, but yeah, they caught lightning in a bottle, and then from there they just repeatedly made the same movie.
I disagree, but I can see on like a very surface level. I think the first phase of Marvel, the first phase and a half, I think were generally very strong as films. But
No, but it had such a weak beginning.
yeah,
By the thing that sparked the entire first phase, that first Iron Man movie, right?
yeah,
Is what I'm saying is like it was lucky, and then from there they adapted it. They took that same philosophy, expanded out to first phase, understandably became hyper popular, and then of course, like anything in media, you just dump it down the trash.
yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
matter. Anyways, The Faculty's fun. Watch The Faculty. I guess if you're here, you probably watch The Faculty. But if you would like some suggestions, check out Cabin in the Woods or our next release, recap of the first season of Arcane.
Yeah.
Fiend, I guess.
Yeah, Fiend.